There we are.
Welcome back to Bellwether No.
It's been a while.
We have a Cougar on live with us. Oh, Sergeant Abbott. Huh?
He's the first one.
Our first Cougar. Yeah.
I feel
our first Cougar, man.
Oh, you should.
This could get wild. Just so you know, just do the like and share. Get ready because this could get wild.
Yeah,
this could be really wild.
Yeah, we'll be all right, man. I don't think it'll get too bad.
No. I mean, I think some of the things that we talked about before we went live a little bit are going to be interesting that I can't believe throughout this whole thing we haven't thought about talking about with the that's kind of nuts. But I think first off, Sergeant Abbott, and I can't get away from it because that's just what I remember, is it's like shit, I'm at Parade Rest doing it right now.
I'm not even real sure what his first name is. I just knew him as Abbott. Sergeant Abbott.
Sergeant Abbott. So I just want to like a little bit about you, like how long you did in the military, how many deployments, stuff like that.
You make me dig back into the history books now, man.
Oh, I know. I'm taking notes.
Well, originally I came in 92, shortly after Desert Storm, Desert Shield. I came in after it was all done, said and done, and over with. I did the split out program, did basic training between my senior and junior year, and then I did AIT after my senior year. But started off as 13 Bravo, shooting cannons, making big holes, launching big bullets. My first unit, I was actually in an 8-inch self-propelled unit. Yeah, go see one of those at the museum over at Sill. That's where it's at.
You're old as fuck.
And I'm only 44. That's the bad part.
He's showing his age now, people.
But then, I got hit with the downsizing in the Clinton administration. So they disbanded my unit, kind of like my first active duty unit when I was in 318. We got broke apart, and I wound up becoming a water purification specialist. So, yep, I was like Pauly Shore.
You were the water boy. You were the water boy.
You were in the Army then? In the Army now, yeah.
Yep, I was like Pauly Shore in the Army now, making water, man. That was crazy. They were actually shooting that movie when I was at AIT in Fort Sill.
Well, they did it at the Fort Sill barracks on the training site.
Yeah. They were shooting that movie when I was there. So I thought it was kind of funny.
They're shooting a movie, guys.
Yeah.
Did you ask to be an extra? Like, can I be an extra?
No, they told us not to even look over there, dude.
I was about to say, I can imagine the drill sergeant's like, what the fuck are you looking at? Don't look over there.
Yeah, we were told straight up front, they're going to be filming a movie while we're out running and doing PT and first thing in the morning and in the afternoon, and you're going to see all these people walking around with TV cameras. Don't even look at them. I'm like,
Roger. I can just imagine.
I'm a private. I don't know any better. Whatever, man. You're telling me what to do. I'm not going to worry about it.
Oh, that's funny.
But I only did the water gig. I only did it for like 2 years, man. We went through like sexual harassment after sexual harassment suit in our chain of command because it was a mixed unit, so we had males and females. It was no bueno, dude.
Oh God.
And then I went to the second PSYOP group as a personal administration specialist. Yes, I was an SF dude pushing papers. It was awesome. I love working for those guys, man. It was a cool gig. And then I got out for a couple of years, and guess what happened? 9/11. Boom, right in my face. And I'm like, dude, really? This is conviction at its best. So the funny part is I lived right next door to a recruiter. We shared the same townhouse. So he invited me over for a party one night, and I'm over there at his house, and we're drinking, and all of a sudden he's like, so how do you feel about the Army? And I was like, dude, I've already been there, done that. He's like, why don't you think about coming back? I'm like, well, and like my wife got real serious. She was like, here we go again, because it's like, well, why not? So I went back through the whole process, man. I went to MEPS. I retook the ASVAB because it had been so long. I actually took a job as an aviation operations specialist, so I was reclassed into something completely different than what I was used to. Worked on Fort Rucker for like a year and a half, and like my first contract back on active duty, I was stipulated in your first 4 years, you must make E5 or you're getting put out. Because I came back in as an E4. So I was like, oh, man. And at that time, aviation operations specialist had been at 795 forever. And I was like, there is no way I'm ever going to make points. Yeah. I was like, there is no way I'm going to make these points ever. And so, like, I went into the guy's office, and I'm like, listen, I'm a qualified 13 Bravo. Send me to Fort Drum. I'll go, because it was close to home. I'm from northeastern Ohio. I would have been good being at Fort Drum. I didn't have any issues with it. I volunteered to go. And where did they send me?
Fort Sill.
The absolute best place you could ever be.
And so
that's awesome.
I reported there, and I got put in 318, which was my first unit, and we went to Iraq in 2003, and we lost 2 of our soldiers while we were there. They were in Bravo Battery, but man, you want to talk about getting punched in the gut when you're standing in a formation and the battalion commander walks out and looks at everybody and goes, guys, I'm sorry, but we lost them. Wait, what? Mm-hmm. And, big ups to Philippe and Ott's family, man. Those are some of the strongest people that I had ever met in my entire life. And if you guys don't know, Ott's got a highway named after him in Ohio right now. We finally got a road in Ohio that's named after him. It's the PFC Kevin Ott Memorial Highway. Nice. Man, talk about a big deal. I was like, that is awesome. And, and then as soon as we came back from Iraq during that deployment, we were disbanded. We did away with 318, and we all came over to 117.
Yes.
We all met.
That's baby.
Yeah.
And that's where all the trouble started.
Oh, goodness.
See, me and Widener, we started out as
Fort Sill, though, I had been there for 2 years already, but for the rest of my time on Fort Sill, I was in 117. I was a Cougar through and through. I deployed.
See, me and Widener actually started out
with the Cougars. I was there.
Widener and I started out in service battery, and
that's where you put me.
We used to get. Yeah, and we used to get so mad when we'd hear everybody else leaving and we were still there. And then so when we got moved to the Cougars, we're like, hell yeah, we actually get off on time. And then it was like,
no,
you hear Alpha leave, you hear Bravo leave, and like, man, what the fuck?
I mean, you hear everyone like, we got like 3 hours left, we're good. This is a
1700 was the standard, dude. There was no getting around that one. That was like, well, we might go home now, we might not.
And see, I was kind of a fuck up over at service battery. So when we went to Charlie, I was like, you know what, dude? Like, I'm gonna turn over a new leaf. Like, we're going to Charlie battery. None of these NCOs know me and everything. And I'll never forget Hoover, man. Hoover's he calls me every once in a while.
Yeah, he's a good old dude.
And this dude is talking shit in formation one day. He's like, there's only one guy that outdrank me in this formation. That's Wadzik. And I was like, shut the fuck up, dude. These people don't know me.
I think Hoover's still in Oklahoma City. Speaking of Hoover.
Yeah, he's in Oklahoma City.
Yeah. No, the Cougars scared me. Like, I think because like everyone was just kind of pushed together, I think. Right? Like everyone just kind of forced together. And I was at E1. I didn't even get promoted out of basic training. Are you supposed to? Because I didn't.
Most of them do now.
Pretty much most people do.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I came to the Cougars as an E1, maybe at E2. I had mosquito wings, I think. But I think
you were an E2 when you showed up to the first formation.
All these people are fucking wild assholes. I don't know if I can make this. I don't know if I got this in me. Oh God. It's just starting to come back to me a little more.
Man, it's crazy. It's crazy when you sit back and think about, the people that made the transition to the Cougars when they dismantled Service Battery. And then you think about the Cougars thinking about this guys coming from Service Battery. I bet they were thinking like, man, these guys ain't going to be able to hack it or whatever. And we ended up fitting in pretty damn good, I think.
Hey, well, with that being said, like we talked about earlier, is I was the only E4 gunner in the battalion, and it's because of Sergeant Abbott. I think I did all right.
Yeah.
I could lay a gun. I could.
Yeah.
Well, I was E5. Well, hey, what were we doing, man?
We did good,
but
I think everyone.
We were actually battling for Top Gun that year.
Yes.
What I think is funny. Yeah. What I think is funny is when me and Widener sit down and talk about it, about how we trained to be 88 mics, and then when we got to Kuwait, we were training a whole different situation, and then when we get over there, they're like, "Oh yeah, you're doing convoy security." Like, what the fuck? Can y'all please just tell me what I'm supposed to do?
I'm pretty sure I asked. I'm like, what is convoy security?
Convoy security. Okay, you got it.
Oh God, that is funny. That is funny. So, all right, let's get back on track a little bit. So, Sergeant Abbott, you got out when? What year did you get out? 12? I think we're having technical difficulties here. People are going.
I don't hear Abbott no more.
Yeah, he muted himself.
Abbott, did you mute yourself? Did you mute yourself?
Mute.
Moot. Did you make yourself moot?
Yeah, he's just laughing. I like it. Hey, he can just laugh all day.
He can laugh at our stories all day long.
All day. Oh, his
man.
No, he'll
Is there a way that we can maybe message him and tell him that like we don't hear him?
Oh, I'm not that smart on this. I just push play and we go.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah.
But anyways, so it's been a while since we've been on here, and we'll kind of
I got
there we go. I heard him.
2012.
There he is. We lost you there for a minute, Abbott.
You there?
After deployment to have
what is going on?
Afghanistan.
Nah, we're losing everyone.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on.
I don't either.
But anyways, we'll just keep talking until I guess he shows up. Why'd you take him off?
Hey, that's all right. Hey,
we'll
keep going. I'll just message him.
Yeah, message him and tell him to come back.
Yeah. Come back.
Come back, Mr. Abbott.
Yeah, I know. Sergeant Abbott. That's how I know him.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that he's no longer Sergeant Abbott. You know, like that's how we knew him. That's how we always knew him.
Well, I mean, you want to talk about someone that, yeah, like he went through his stuff too, and it's good to hear. Like for people listening, we were talking to him before we got on a little bit, and he's doing great.
Yeah, dude, that's amazing for him. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, he went. You know, the stuff that we went through, you know, is just nuts when you think about it, and the fact that he's still doing just great. That's awesome. That's a win for him. You know.
Well, you can even see it like when you talk to him, like he's just in a good place, and that's fantastic too.
Yeah.
Not everyone's that fortunate either, and
no, not at all. Not at all. You know, I mean, we all deal with our own issues, you know, and being that he's handling them so well it's a great thing.
Well, yeah, and like you said, it's not always been fantastic. That's why I wish
no
he had jumped back up.
And you know, and when he brought up the stuff that we haven't even touched on about our unit,
yeah,
like it's crazy. While you get him on, keep talking. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I'm trying to get him on now. But Sergeant Abbott, he brought up some of the stuff that happened in our unit. So we had Hill. He's the reason that we started this whole page because, you know, he took his own life and he meant so much to us. And it was very unexpected. And there he is.
Sorry, guys.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I got you guys.
Okay. Wajik got to step out. But we're talking. Oh, he left again. But anyways, so he brought up something. So we had Hill, and he watched this from a different perspective that we're not, I guess, didn't think about really. And then he brought up another thing that we'll touch on here in a bit that happened to the unit. And it goes by the name of.
There he is.
Yeah, I see him.
Yeah.
Justin Green and Jose Ramirez, which is a whole crazy story. But before we get into that, not touch on Sergeant Abbott a little more. I'd like to ask him a couple questions about transition because can you hear me, Sergeant Abbott?
Yeah, I got you guys.
Because
what happened? We lost you.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, man. My Chromebook decided it wanted to act like crazy, so I had to go pull out the PC.
Oh, it's working.
Yeah.
So we're just talking about how like great you feel like you're doing, like not feel like that you're doing, how happy you seem in life, and which is great. But what were some of the tough times when you got out of the military? Like what happened there?
Oh wow. I'm sure like everybody has experienced, you know, it was like the drinking game while I was in the military. So that's all I did when I got out. Like I was drinking from the time I got off of work until the time I went to bed. And I was killing probably a 12-pack a night easy. And like
easy.
I was basically killing myself. That's all I was doing. You know, I wasn't functioning as a member of society. I was drinking myself stupid every chance I could get because I want to forget all the crap that happened to me in the past. You know, losing people and deployments and just being in those situations, dealing with the flashbacks and the PTSD. Man, that was the only way that I knew how to deal with it because I came from that time where it was like, oh, you need to go to sick call? Are you some kind of sissy? What's wrong with you? You're not hurt. You're just trying to get out of PT. You know, that was the stuff that I dealt with growing up through my time in the military. And like to turn around and be like, I need to go to mental health because I need to talk to somebody. I think I might be losing my mind. That was unheard of.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. Not going to do it at all.
Uh-huh.
And about a little over 6 years ago, you know, my wife started pushing me and pushing me and pushing me. She was like, hey, you need to get yourself taken care of because we're about to be over. And like that was the stamp on the check right there. It was like, open your eyes. What are you doing to yourself? So I started going to get help. I went to the VA. I started seeing the shrink. I started going to the doctor. I started doing everything that I could think of to possibly take care of myself because I hadn't for so long. I just lived with whatever was going on in my life because, hey, that's how I was brought up in the military. You just live with it. You're going to be all right. You know, drive on, carry on, soldier. You're doing a good job.
Yeah.
In all reality, you know, the majority of us, we weren't. We were all kinds of screwed up in the head. I mean, I still deal with it to this day. Yeah, I can be a high functioning member of society right now, but it took me to stop drinking. It took me going to church. It took me looking for something else other than just pain to fill my life. And ever since I started going to church, became a licensed minister, talked to people about changing their lives around, started a support group at the church for people that are drinking and trying to get away from addiction. I mean, I went the exact opposite direction of where I started from because I wanted to make a difference. And that's what I really liked about your guys' show, because you guys were on here and you want to talk about that stuff that we never got an opportunity to talk about.
Yep.
And it's serious. Yeah, we make jokes and we crack on each other, but in the back of our mind, we know that this is a serious thing, and it's happening every single day. And why are we letting it happen to our friends, the guys that we spent the most time with? You know, you get inside that Paladin and you're out in the field for a whole week. There's not many more guys that you can get to know real close than
real close
living with you.
Real close.
I mean, it baffles me why we always go so long before we actually seek each other out again to be like, here I am. But
you know,
we picked up that conversation like it just stopped just the other day. Kind of like what we did. We even went live tonight. You know, we just started talking like we were together. So it's just one of those things, man. It makes you stop and think and wonder. You know, I heard you mention the Hill and Green thing. You know, it makes me wonder. Those two were best friends. You know, they were best buddies. They hung out all the time.
Hill and Ramirez, or Ramirez and Green.
Yeah, Ramirez. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wrong guys.
Yeah.
Running 500 miles an hour.
Slow down, Abbott.
Sorry, man. But Ramirez and Green, they were like best friends. Green was married.
And we're going to touch in that story a little bit later because I'm sure there's very few people that know what we're talking about, and we'll elaborate. But can I caveat off of something that you just said, Sarn Abbott?
It's Ted.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Brilliant, man. Ted.
Slow down there, bud.
I think that and this is not an excuse, but it's kind of like the reality is life happens and we just forget to. It's not even forget. It's like we get too busy. But then I think I was in this mindset for a long time. The phone goes both ways. Well, if he's not talking to me, why am I talking to them? That is the absolute wrong mindset to be in.
Yep.
And I fell into that for years, like literally years and years and years. So I think that's a huge thing. And just life gets in the way, but it should never get in the way to the extent of what we've seen our friends and, you know, fellow brothers do to themselves. You know,
I think a lot of it goes back to especially being in an artillery unit where it's all males. You know, we're always like, I'm the big guy. I'm puffed up. I'm not gonna show weakness. I'm not going to let people know that I'm hurt. I'm not going to let them see tears come out of my eyes because I'm better than that. But that's how we were raised.
Like, people like to say, you know, police officers, they're A-type personalities. Go to a fucking artillery unit. Go to an artillery unit.
Man.
Like, that is your A-type personalities. We used to just fight each other for fucking, if we didn't like you, we just fight each other. Like,
it was all about being the leader of the pack, man, and who could step up and be that next leader. That's how we always looked at it. It was always cutthroat in artillery, man.
Always.
And I'm almost positive it's still that way to this day. But it was like, hey, if I can't be top dog, he's not going to be top dog.
No.
I'm going to fight for it.
Yeah. That's the thing that I fight with, you know, that I noticed when field artillery units got together. You always try to be that top gun. You always try to be that top guy. You always, you know, I mean, you wanted to be the one that could drink the most, run the fastest, do the most push-ups, do the most sit-ups,
most rounds,
do all this crap.
You know, everything.
Yeah, you wanted to do everything to a certain level that most people couldn't. You know, most units don't even think about the level of intensity that we had in those.
No.
Well, until
I think the only other type of unit that would even come close to what we were dealing with in the artillery are infantry guys.
Yeah.
We always talked bad about one another, but when it really came to it, we were each other's biggest supporter. You know,
but we still know who was best. We still know who was best.
Oh,
so that's
well,
yeah, you know,
hands down, I'm taking 98 pounds and I'm making a 250 meter crater. I'm not even going to lie, dude. You're not going to see me out there humping.
Back when I hung out with Meade a lot, you know, that's one thing I can say about that little dude. I mean, he would start fights in bars just to do it. He would just stare at people till they got mad to fight him. And I always had his back, even though I knew he was just doing this just for fun. I always had his back, you know. It was just one of those things, you know. I mean, we always had each other's back, but we talked shit about each other. But when it came down to it, we always had each other's back.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But you got to think about it too, is we had, like, this is a whole different spectrum because you had us as soldiers, Wazik, and then we had Sergeant Abbott on the NCO spectrum, like looking down at us like, what the fuck is happening in this?
What the fuck is wrong with these people?
No, because whether you guys know it or not, we had our issues as NCOs too.
I'm sure.
If you guys, we actually sometimes behind closed doors, you didn't even want to know what happened in those office meetings. Sometimes, man, it was literally ruthless aggression all the time. That's how we lived our lives. And it was all about, my guys are better than your guys, and we're going to go out there and prove it to you every single time. And that's all we did was poke each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, for as many gun crews as I had in 117, I had probably the biggest misfits of gun crews that you could possibly throw together ever. For every single one that I ever had when we came back from deployment. I mean, I started off with Vernal Reed as my gunner in my very first section. Me did not get along at all for the longest.
He didn't get along with a lot of people. That's why I love him.
No, but he was awesome, dude. He was the chilled out to my hyperactivity, which made it work for us.
Yeah.
And like, you know, my second gun crew, when I came in and you were my gunner, I was like, seriously, you guys are giving me an E4 for a gunner, and you want me to teach him how to do my job? Really? Have you guys lost your mind? I'm not that good. What I tell you what, we were out there and we were slinging rounds and we were battling for Top Gun that year, and people were like, I can't believe you guys can do this.
Remember when he shot out? Didn't he shoot out?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. Why did
he's like, we don't talk about that?
Well,
yeah, we don't. Oh God. Oh God.
Yeah, I mean, that was, you know, and to kind of answer Steven's question, I see it over here on the side at the same time. It's hard to take that time when you're in that kind of environment, you know, to really check on your guys and be like, hey, are you having a problem? Is it really that serious? I mean, because, you know, you ask them, hey, you're not out there trying to marry a stripper, are you? You're not out there buying a car at 45% interest, are you? We talk about that stuff. We never talked about, dude, are you doing okay? Are you really really rolling around in there the way that it's supposed to? Are you doing all right? You know, those were the things that we didn't talk about.
I remember when I was getting out, like we had to sit down and talk to these people, and they asked us, you know, like straight up, like, are you having suicidal thoughts, this, that, and the other? And like, all you can think of is like, fuck no, I'm good. I'm good. You know, there's nothing wrong with me. And, you know, like I said before we got on the show, there was a lot of things that I didn't realize that was a problem until it was pointed to me and pointed out, like, you know, like, look, dude, you got an issue. You know, I just thought it was normal. But it's crazy how it all works out. You know, I mean, we were a bunch of misfits, but we were some. We were badasses for misfits.
We were dedicated,
you know?
misfits. That's what we were.
Yeah, very much so. And you know, when we sit back and we think about all the shit that we went through, you know, between deployments and even in garrison, you know, I mean, we had guys that, you know, went AWOL for a while that came back, and you know, it was just it was bone and heel. Well, AWOL just fucking
just because they wanted to party
to go.
Yeah,
just we're just gonna keep partying, you know. Even when I was in service battery, we had a guy go that went AWOL for a while and came right back, and it was like he never left, you know. I know when I was in service battery, like I went through an issue when my grandmother passed away. I got the call from my parents late at night, like it was like 9 or 10 at night, and my Sergeant Camp was my NCO. You know, he was the one in charge of me, and he actually was on staff duty that night. So I went to him and I said, hey, look, my grandmother's passing away. Like, can I get like an emergency pass, whatever, you know, to go see her before she passes away, this, that, and the other. Well, he decided not to let me go that night because it was so late. And you know how I was back in those days. I mean, as soon as formation was out, I mean, I already had a beer in my hand, you know. And so he really didn't want me to leave that night, you know. So he said, come to PT formation in your BDUs and we'll give you your pass then. Well, that night I went home and I started packing, and I was up all night. I was stressed out, you know, hoping that I could get there before she passed away. Well, I fell asleep and I missed PT. And I was getting a bunch of phone calls from him and Smoke Salcedo and all this, that, and the other, wondering where I was. And I tried to explain to him, like, look, everything's fine. I just overslept, whatever. Well, they were going to give me an Article 15 for it, for missing formation. And they thought that I went AWOL. But I explained to them, like when they handed me the paperwork, I wrote out on there, about, when you have your comments or whatever, I told them, straight up, like, well, I thought we were supposed to help each other. This is a we're supposed to be there for family, whatever. He ended up ripping it up and letting me go home. And I got home in time to see my grandmother before she passed away. Got to be there for her funeral and stuff like that. But, it was such a normal thing for guys in our unit to go AWOL. They just thought that I went without permission, when really and truly I just was up all night and missed PT formation,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but that just goes to show the kind of people we had in our unit, because I mean, if we didn't have people going AWOL left and right, maybe they wouldn't have thought that about me,
Who went AWOL besides Hill and Bone?
When we were in service battery, Wellborn went AWOL.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember Wellborn and Worley.
I do.
They were some of my buddies when we were in
well, that just explained it all right there.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. So
no, I couldn't believe sitting in the court martial that they put on Hill and Bone after they came back from being AWOL and listening to the comment, and like Hill was that guy. Like, I don't care. I'm just going to say what's on my mind, but I'm going to do it respectfully just because you're a Fulbright colonel. he looked that colonel in the face and said, "We wanted to party. That's it." I was sitting with Smoke Palmer, and we both looked at each other like, "Did he really just say that?" And feel great, no problem. And then, oh yeah, by the way, you're restricted until you deploy. You can't go anywhere. You're going to be locked up until you guys deploy. Congratulations. Like,
oh my God, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that.
That was the craziest court martial I had ever seen. Honestly, it was like watching something in a movie, but it was unbelievable.
Well, what about when Ramirez went to the board and he didn't want to go, so he put every award that you could have and like sergeant major ranks on it.
Hey, that was before Soul of Valor was cool.
This is true.
But he told his NCO over and over, "Don't send me to the board. I don't want to go." And he didn't listen, so he went and got everything he could and walked in there with that shit.
No, he was happy being in E4, man. He didn't want to go any farther than that.
No. Oh God. Like, there's a few things. Like, I had to just go upstairs because my kid fell down and her whole piggy bank just busted open on the ground and lost all her money, like just thousands.
Oh wow.
Not even thousands, like coins on the ground. And I'm like, oh my God. So I feel like I came in the middle of something. But we're talking about court martials and Hill. You want to hear one of the craziest stories? When Hill when him and Bone went AWOL and they went to Arizona, they went to Window Rock, Arizona. And I don't want to say had the opportunity to visit because I had to go to Berry Hill. But just hearing some of the stories that Bone told me about what they did out there, that shit was wild. That was wild.
I don't think they were so messed up when they came back.
Like, how did they make it back? Oh, man. Okay, before we go too far down that road, I think I want to point something out to people that might be listening, and it has a lot to do with Abbott right now. And you found your way back, and you found your way through your hard times with obviously church and your religion and stuff like that. Like, what do you think like spoke to you in that sense? Because there's people that say, they're not religious, and that's fine. Like, what do you like? What made it different for you? Where like, I think I'm going to see this through and see what it has to offer for me.
Man, it was crazy because like the night before I went to church, I was drinking until like 3:00 in the morning. And like, I don't know what it was. Something just came over me. And like, I poured out my beer and I'm like, we're going to church in the morning. And my wife looked at me like, what? It's like 4 a.m., right? And I'm like, I don't care. We're going to church in the morning. That's it. And I walked in, and it was what I needed at that point. I mean, yeah, sometimes, church isn't for everybody.
Sure.
But what I needed right at that moment is that I needed internal healing that I wasn't getting by talking to a therapist or even talking to my wife at that time. I needed something different. And, that difference was made inside of me that was like, you know what? I always like to see everything that I try to do through to the end, and I like to be successful at what I do. And I put extra time into study, and I put extra time into doing stuff when I'm not at work. And I mean, I was like that in the military too. You know that. Yeah. I was always in reading something or doing something that was military related. I never just let it be. I always had to see what or how I could continue on and move forward. And that was it. I mean, it changed me from the inside out. It wasn't an automatic, like a light switch clicked off and I stopped drinking and I stopped smoking and I stopped cussing. Sure. That's not even the case. It was months later. And it was like, after I stopped doing all that stuff, it just changed the way that I looked at myself and the way that I looked at other people going through the same thing that I went through. And that's what helped me start a support group and start, a group for folks that are battling with addictions, whether it be smoking, drugs, alcohol, sexual addiction. It's a thing. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff we don't talk about.
Absolutely.
But it's real life for everybody. They want help and they want somebody to talk to, even though most of the time on the outside, we're like, hey, I'm good. I'm happy. I don't have to do anything. I just show up. I'm good. Sit back. Hey, I'm doing great today.
Yeah, and I think
that the inside, I'm like a duck, man. I'm just, the feet are going, and I'm going nowhere. I'm just sitting here.
Yeah,
doing fantastic.
Calm on the outside, but the inside is going nuts.
But yeah, I mean, that's what helped me, man. It changed something inside of me first. And then I was able to make that outward change too, to where it was like, hey, the outside matches the inside. I'm doing something right. And what did I have to lose? Except for a couple of hours a day on a Sunday? I think it was well worth it. I mean, that's the way I looked at it at that time. It's totally different for me now, because I'm there anytime there's a church function. I'm there on Sunday morning. I'm there on Sunday afternoon. I'm there on Wednesdays. Sometimes I'm even there on Friday. I'll go and cut the grass if it needs to be cut. I like being involved because if I can do it, a lot of other people can do it too. And you have to be willing to set the example.
Now,
about that being NCOs all the time. We have to be the standard bearers. Well, being in church is almost the exact same thing.
Now, with that being said, you sit here and you think about it. Now, do you feel like with you going to church and all that, and you changing your whole life over, do you ever feel like you treat that like your military job, like where you feel like obligated, like you have to be there for them no matter what? I mean,
I did it
that's
first.
just
Yeah,
did it first.
I know exactly what you're saying, but yeah, I did that at first. I was like, military mindset. I like the structure. I like the way we can do things step by step. I can get down with it. I got it. But then really started getting involved. It's not like that at all.
Well, see, I'm not saying church is like what my job is, because I'm in the oil field, and when I first got in the oil field, you have a chain of command per se, like normal, and I remember when I got into it, I felt like a brand new private. I didn't know what I was doing. My dad and my brother had been in this business for years. So I would call them on the phone and ask them how to do certain things, as I was going on. And, really and truly, I should have talked to the people there at work, but instead, even though my brother and my dad were competitors, they knew me, and so they were willing to help me. But as I started learning and getting better at my job, I felt more like an NCO, like when I became like a shop foreman or whatever. And it took me a long time to realize that the oil field is not the military. Even though they talk the same, they act the same, they do the same, stuff on Friday, Saturday nights, whatever. They don't take too kindly to you calling them crazy, or you asking them, "Hey, what the hell? What the fuck were you thinking there?" Or whatever. And I know that you're a religious person and stuff, but I mean, when you were in the military, I mean, how many times did you look at a soldier and ask him, like, what the fuck were you thinking? Or something like that. I mean,
every damn day.
I mean, it was just one of those things that
every day
I had to realize that civilians don't like that shit much, and I mean, some of the best guys that I had in the pump shop that really didn't complain that much were the ones that were veterans, because they knew where I was coming from. Like when I worked for Quinn and Andrews, when I was a shop foreman, I had a pump hand that was a Marine. And when I found out he was a Marine, man, it was easy for me to talk to that guy, and because he understood what I was coming from, and he never took it serious, and he understood why I was talking to him the way I was, and this, that, and the other. But you got 4 or 5 other hands that don't understand why you're riding this dude's ass like that. But now the guy is a salesman for a company. He's very successful. I'm proud of him, and he even told me the other day that, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be where I'm at, because I wouldn't have learned the stuff that I did, but people looked at me like, why do you ride this guy so much? But, he learned it that way. And that's the way I was taught to teach people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. There's a lot that kind of going into the civilian world. And that's another question I have for you, actually. I got a couple buddies, actually a few buddies, that are going from getting out of active duty for 20 years to going to the civilian world. And I think, it's a very hard progression. And I don't know, like, if you could give one, because you're successful now and like you found your way, like on how to be comfortable outside of the military, like what would some of the advice be for that?
Man, you just got to let it go. honestly.
What go? The military? The military way?
That was the most complicated thing for me, especially like moving into a civilian company. When I worked in a factory for a few years after I got out of the military because, hey, I didn't have to necessarily work with anybody else. I was pretty much on my own. I was building cabinet doors. I was by myself and I was doing my thing. So I really didn't have too much interaction with other people at that point. But the second I moved into an office setting, dude, it was like, I can't be walking around here hollering at folks, and I can't be like, have you lost your mind? We can't do this. It was like, you just have to pull it back, and you have to remember, I was this chill dude before I joined the military, and they turned me into this high dude that was always yelling and spitting and cussing and fussing over everything. Let me go back to being that chill dude I was before I joined the military, because that's how people respond better. They don't want you cussing and fussing in their face all the time.
No, they don't.
They would rather you say, hey,
they don't.
I appreciate what you did for me today, and you have a great weekend. They like that way better than, oh, what were you thinking? Have you lost your mind? You're not supposed to do it that way. I didn't tell you to do it. No,
what the fuck's your problem?
I got rid of all that stuff, bro. And it was hard. It was hard. And like,
I think the hardest transition for me was when I got out, knowing that I wasn't part of something bigger than me. When I first got out, my first job that I had when I first got out, I was working in a factory that made like the big double doors. We made all the double doors for the stadium there in Dallas, for the Cowboys and stuff like that. But I remember my boss went on vacation, and he told me to put a certain hole in the door, and I did. Like, he drew it out and everything. Well, my boss, like his boss, came out and was like, "Why did you put it there?" And I was like, "Well, that motherfucker told me to do it." He was like, "No." And I mean, it was an easy fix. But when the guy came back, he was like, "Why'd you put that in the door?" I was like, "You fucking told me to." He was like, "No, I didn't." And he started mouthing off to me. Man, I followed him all the way in the office and started raising the hell with him. I mean, I got fired from my first job as a civilian like that. I mean, I maybe kept it maybe, I don't know, a month before I got fired because they didn't know how to take me. And, and that was really hard for me. I went from that to drilling rigs, which drilling rigs was different. Like, I could talk shit to these guys. And then when they're just as fucked up as I am, I mean, it was great. And, but when I went to work for the city is when it took me the hardest time to really adjust to a civilian job, because it was way different. I mean, they took breaks, like they took a break every morning at 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock, and plus your hour lunch. So, I mean, like, for an hour and a half a day, you're pretty much on break. And I wasn't used to that. I was used to, you're just balls to the wall from the time you're there to the time you leave, and you work hard, you play hard, That was one of the hardest things for me, was the pace of life. I mean, in the military, everything is high speed. You got to do everything high speed. And then when you get in the civilian world, they're like, kid, I come in at 8, I have a break at 10 for 15, 30 minutes, whatever. I go to lunch at 12. I come back at 1. At 3, I got another break, and I'm off at 5. I don't give a shit. And, I talked to a friend of mine, that's having issues with her company, like people that work with her. And I tell her there's difference between people that are there trying to make a difference and people that are there to draw a paycheck. And, like, the thing is, she's a veteran also, so she doesn't she doesn't understand why this person acts the way they do. But not everybody had the training and the mentality that we had, going through all this stuff. But
no, so kind of with that being said, also I think all three of us can kind of, and whoever's watching that's been in the military, is what I've noticed being in the civilian sector. My first thing was I always know that there's always someone in charge. And if they say, hey, this is what you're going to do, this is what I do. I don't ask questions. I mean, unless it's like something fucking out of control. I'm like, hey, I'm your boss. This is what you got to do. This is when you show up. This is where you got to be. Like, okay, cool. I got that. I can do that all day. And that's another reason I think military people, if they want to, can absolutely succeed in the civilian world, because we're so used to that structure. We're so used to, hey, tell me where to be, what time, and what to wear. I'm there. We got this.
Yeah, and I'm there. I'm there.
We'll be there 15 minutes early.
100%, because if not, you're late.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing.
I used to.
It's like what I do is like
I used to
employees
all the time saying that.
Oh my God, you're stepping on.
No,
me.
Go ahead, Widener.
No, it's like the employees that I have. Well, I guess I only have 2 that weren't military, but you can tell the difference. And it's great, but then it's bad too, because you have people like Wadzik, and you're like, what the fuck are you saying? Like, just stop arguing. Stop arguing.
Well, it makes it hard for me too.
What I was saying is,
No, go ahead, man.
What I was saying is, I always tell people, about say battalion runs. Okay, the battalion run will be say you're going to take off at 6. Well, the battalion will tell everybody we're going to take off at 6, so be there at 5:45, and then your unit will say, okay, we got to run at 5:45, so be there at 5:30.
Yes.
And then your platoon will say, we got to run at 5:30, so be here at 5:15. And then your section is like, we got to run at 5:30, we got to be here, or at 5:15, we got to be here at 5. So you're standing in formation for a fucking hour before you ever take off. And it's like so much wasted fucking time just standing there. But I mean, that was like, as a lower enlisted, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to be here, And I mean, when I tell people if I got to be at work at 7:00, or 7:30 or whatever, I try to leave my house, before, if I got to be there at 7:30, I'm leaving at my house at 7. If I got to be at work at 7, I'm leaving at 6:30. It's normal life,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's just in general, it's a hard transition for people that have been in the military so long, but it's doable as long as they can sit there and face facts that.
But you have to be adaptable too. I mean, that's the big thing.
You have to adapt 100%.
You have to change your mindset. You have to change your attitude. You have to be able to just go with the flow. And I know a lot of vets find that hard to do because especially when you get your sergeant majors and your lieutenant colonels and generals, and they're used to being in charge all the time, and they walk into a place as an entry-level executive and they got somebody telling them what to do. Oh my word. You just watch somebody's head explode.
Yep.
But you have to adjust, and you have to.
All of a sudden, they're not talking about.
You're just going to be broke.
Well, it's such a. I mean, it doesn't have to be a hard transition either. It's like, hey, okay, my military's done. Now I got the experience that's going to help me get to, what people want and do what I want to do. It's not done, but I kind of got to put that on the side for now and figure out how this place operates. And then once you get in the groove of things, they will realize, hey, this is his strong points, her strong points. Like, this is an asset to the company. And I promise you that will happen if you're watching. Like, it's tough, but
sometimes you got to be patient, man, and other times you might walk into a good situation. Like,
absolutely,
right now, I walked into
transition.
I walked into this company, they had just started. I walked into an entry level position. I was stuck to a phone answering phone calls for 8 hours a day, and I stuck with it, and I let all that junk that I carried with me coming in there, like, hey, I'm just going to go with the flow. You pay me to answer the phone for 8 hours a day. I'm going to answer your phone calls for 8 hours a day, and I'm going to be happy.
The hell out of them.
Oh yeah, and I'll answer the hell out of them.
Sweating. I'm not freezing. I could be doing things that are a whole lot worse than this.
100%.
Hey, you guys are paying me $16 an hour to sit here and answer your phone. I'm good with it.
I'm fine. Yeah.
But, I walked in at just the right time, and, I've been there almost 6 years, and I'm a program manager now. I mean, I run departments. It's answering the phone to running departments. I don't know how it works, but hey, I'm very blessed to be able to walk into that job each and every day.
That's great. That's great. I just wish more people that we knew were like that. And we do have a handful of Cougars that are doing great. And, that's amazing.
We have a lawyer.
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yep.
He catches really big bass, too.
Yeah, he's part of a fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, when you think about the successful people that came out of the Cougars, and it's overwhelming. But when you look at the ones that are having issues, it's also overwhelming.
Yeah.
I mean, not to change everything dark or anything, but I mean, Sergeant Abbott, what were you doing when you got the news about Hill? Because I remember exactly where I was. Remember exactly what I was doing. And I remember my phone call to Widener. We sat there for like 10 minutes with no words on the phone.
Yeah, man. I was at work that day, and I got a call from Bray. He called me on the phone, and he usually never called me in the middle of the day. So it was kind of strange, but he called me and he was like, hey man, I got some bad news. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he was having a hard time even voicing it to me verbally. It was rough. And he finally got it out and told me what happened. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. This can't be real right now. I mean, the last time I saw Hill, he was laughing. He was having a good time. Him and Bone were getting ready to go to Vegas, and they were just going to party. They were going to spend money. They were going to do what they were going to do. And he was excited about life. And then just to turn around, and see the Facebook post, I was like, wow, really?
Well, see, I got a message from his cousin. And I don't know if I was the first one he messaged, but I was one of them that he messaged first, one of the first ones. And he is like, I know you don't know me, but we have a mutual friend, Desmond Hill, whatever. And he went off to tell me what happened. And I tried to get a hold of everybody I could that was on my Facebook list. I didn't talk to Widener until the next day. I was on the way to the deer lease for deer hunting season started that weekend, and I was actually riding shotgun with a friend of mine that was driving. And when I got the message from his cousin, my whole life stopped. Like, I remember sitting in my deer blind that day. I took my gun with me and everything. And I remember sitting there in my blind, drinking beer, thinking, I mean, the whole time I couldn't even worry about the deer that I was seeing. I couldn't worry about anything. All I could think about was Hill. All I could think about were my Cougar brothers. How are we going to deal with this? You know, this, that, and the other. I got to talk to Widener that afternoon, or, you know, after the morning hunt. And when he called me, we sat there and we kind of went, I kind of walked him through with what the messages were that I got. And I'm telling you, it was about 10 minutes of radio silence. We just sit there. We couldn't, there was nothing to say. It hit home. It hit so close to home that it was almost scary. It was almost to the point where, like, you know, you start questioning yourself. Like, if this could happen to him, like, what could happen to me? You know, because, you know, we were so close. We were so, you know, and there was times that me and Widener would talk on the phone after the fact. We would talk on the phone for hours and hours and hours, and we would just talk about the whole situation and talk about good times with Hill, and you know, Widener would always tell me about how he would call him and say, "Man, you don't sound good, white boy," or whatever, you know. And it's just the things that the little things with Hill that was hard was that he was so close.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I've had family members kill themselves. I've had, stuff like that, but it never hit home like with Hill. And with Hill, it felt like a piece of me died with him, you know, because I mean, Hill was an awesome guy, you know, and to talk to him, you would have never known that this was what was going on in his mind and his life at the time.
Yeah, I mean, God.
I think we all say it to each other a lot, you know, like especially when we're in the military. It's like, don't worry, I got your back. You ever need anything, you give me a call. Or
yeah.
I'll stay in touch.
Absolutely.
We say it a lot.
Well, that that all goes back to what I was saying earlier is I mean, I think at the very beginning of this is, yeah, we got your back until my life's too busy.
Yeah.
And that's a hard pill to swallow right there. You know what I mean? Because like Hill was one of my best friends, and next thing I know, I'm burying him. And I think that might even be a whole different podcast, what happened. But yeah, I got your back. I got too busy because I'm married and I have kids. Like, oh, the phone works both ways. He should have reached out. He reached out to me multiple times. But, you know, it's like, when does that end? How do you end that cycle? I think that's the hard question too. And you know, Abbott, as you being a minister or whatnot, like, where do you think that ends? Like, where do you know when you should reach out to somebody? When do you know that someone's like showing those signs to they need someone to talk to? You know, that's in your wheelhouse now to an extent.
Honestly, I've only had to deal with this like in my recent life one time. And most people, before they even think about, doing anything to themselves, they always kind of hint or joke about it when they're talking with you. You know, well, what would it be like if I wasn't sitting here anymore?
Without me, you know.
Or, they'll make jokes. Well, even if I die tomorrow, they can replace me. It's stuff like that. It's like, yeah, it's serious. And sometimes you have to like really approach it kind of with kid gloves sometimes, because you don't want to, you're afraid you're going to say the wrong thing, or you're going to do the wrong thing, or you're going to come off in the wrong attitude or the wrong manner when you're trying to help them. But at the same time, you know, it's like if you don't say something, you might have just like sealed the deal for them. Even if it's like, hey, are you doing okay?
Yep.
Usually that's all it takes. You don't have to be like all up in their business. Well, tell me what's going on right now. I need to know what's going on in your life.
Yeah.
You don't look right. Something wrong. Tell me what's wrong. You don't have to do that. Sometimes it's like, hey, man, I know you might be going through something right now, but it'll get better. And if you need something, you tell me you need something, and we can work it out together. You don't have to work it out on your own. I'm not going to steer you in the direction that you need to go and leave you alone. I'm going to help you get there. You know, that's where all of us as people fail. We're quick to say, okay, here's the crisis hotline for the VA or for the suicide hotline for the United States. Call it. But many of us are willing to sit there with that person, be like, I'm not getting off the phone until you're done. You know, I'm going to be right here with you through this whole thing. We'll have a 3-way conversation with these people. I want you to get this off your chest. I need you to start helping yourself too. I'm here for you, but you got to be able to help yourself some too. You can't always just get spoon-fed everything. And that's the scary part of, you know, suicide, is because even if you do that with them, it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen.
There's a meme on Facebook that says, "Don't kill yourself for a job that will replace you before your obituary comes out in the newspaper," or something around that.
I know what
and it's hard. You know, it's hard to accept the fact that we let a brother down. You know, and that was one of my hardest things with Hill, is I felt that we, you know, as a whole, we let him down because there should have been somebody he could have talked to, you know, whether it been me, Widener, you, anybody. You know, there's a number of people that could have been there for him. And, you know, that makes you wonder, you know, we're so busy with our lives that, I mean, we couldn't have took the time to call him, you know, just to see how he's doing, or, you know, ask him how, you know, how everything's going, or, you know, just anything. Kind of goes back to what Widener was saying. We get so busy with our lives and this, that, and the other, you know, with wives, kids, whatever. But I mean, it's hard, you know, I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow, knowing that we let somebody down, you know, that was so close to us. I mean, it's not like
so
with some stranger on the street. He was like a family member.
No, okay. Like, this is like it's tough in general for me. I mean, it hit me pretty. I mean, I literally had to go bury him for over an hour and a half, I think, because Abbott, when I went to the res to bury him, we didn't have a backhoe or not. We used shovels until we buried him. So that you know, touched me in a huge way. Like that, I've never had something so real in my life happen until I'm sitting there throwing dirt on one of my best buddies. And I, you know, you say that, Wadzik, you say we let someone down. To an extent, we did, but to an extent, I think we let all of us down. You know what I mean? Like, because
I get
once again, it goes back to, you have a phone, I have a phone. It goes both ways. Yeah. Like, I don't give a fuck if you're making $500,000 a day and I'm sitting here barely making mortgage. Like, why aren't we talking? Why aren't we seeing what's happening here? You know what I mean? So I know at the very last days of Hill, or last month, whatever, he was just lost. He was lost, and he felt like there's no one listening, and there's. It's just it was tough. It was tough, and I just want people to realize that that's not the answer, and I think that's what this whole thing's about. That's not the answer, and if you have a good support system, that can change everything.
It's a permanent fix to a temporary problem. Absolutely. Is the way I've always looked at suicide. And it sucks. It sucks that so many people, I mean, I've been in some fucked up situations. I've been divorced twice. And I mean, my first divorce, I kind of saw it.
You're just not good at marriage.
Yeah, I really suck at this marriage thing. But when you sit back and you think about it, you lose everything. You lose everything in a marriage. I mean, people say, "Oh, she gets half," but it's not like that. It's more of a, I mean, you lose everything. Like when me and my ex-wife split up, my second one, both my daughters live with her. I had to start my life completely over. I mean, like I had to move towns. I had to get a new job, new place to live. Everything changed. Everything changed. And like, I don't mind the change, but it's so fucking hard to start over and over. And, and that's one of the things that fucking kill me. Like, I mean, even today, it's hard to date someone because you sit there and you think about it and you're like, fuck, like, am I mentally stable enough for this person? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, like they have needs, just like you do. But I mean, like, am I going to be man enough to be able to meet their needs when I'm the one that's fucking dying inside because, heal or because of something that's in my mind, or whatever, I mean, I think when people look at veterans, I mean, the first thing they always want to say is, thanks for, thanks for your service or whatever, and when they tell you that, I always answer, well, thanks for the support without ever thinking. But when it comes down to it, when you really think about it, like, I mean, like, do they really know what you went through? Do they really know the hardships that it takes to get out of bed every fucking day?
No.
Every fucking day, it's so hard to get out of bed and say, you know what, I'm gonna fucking own this day. It's my fucking day, whatever. I mean, like,
but that's okay because they actually, I think, show them the support. Like, hey, if they, even if it's running through the motions, they're actually taking the time out to run through the motions. That's how I look at it. Hey, thanks for your service. Cool. Like, yeah, you don't know me. You don't know what I went through. You don't know the tours that I went through. That's cool. If you take your time out to say that, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
I think with this, since you brought it up, bud, it was like something that they teach us, or something that we teach in church a lot is, your past is your past. You can't change it. You can't fix it. You can't, it is who you are now. It's what defines you in the future on how you deal with it. You can keep going back to it and you can keep going back to the well and back to the well. But is it really going to change what you do tomorrow? No, because you keep doing the same thing that you were doing yesterday tomorrow until you say,
but isn't that
yesterday was yesterday. Tomorrow, I want to be better than I was today. That's what it's really.
But isn't that the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result?
Oh, definitely. But as veterans, and we live in that.
Yeah.
All of us
Every day.
have done it.
Yeah. True.
I mean, it's like, we talk about our glory days of what we did while we were in the military, and we talk about the jokes and we talk about the pranks we pulled on each other, and it made us who we are today. Is that really going to be who we are tomorrow? Are we going to try to become a better version of ourselves tomorrow than we were today? That's what it's
yeah. And see, that's something that I've been working on, is trying to be just a little bit better person than I was yesterday. That's something that personally I've been working on. Now, it's harder to do than to say. It's harder to actually do it than talk about it.
Well,
But it's one of those things. It's one of those things that we fight. Me and my ex-wife didn't end up on the best in the best way, but right now I'm having to deal with the fact that my daughters are starting to have boyfriends and stuff like that. And that, I called my ex-wife today and I told her, I said, hey, look, you're going to have to help me through this, because me personally, I just want to go rip their face off because they don't deserve to be with my daughter, knowing in the back of my mind, they're not at that age where it's going to even be worth the shit, like that relationship ain't going to mean nothing in 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, now you can't explain that to your daughters. You cannot explain that to your daughter right now, that the guy you're, supposedly is your boyfriend right now is going to be nothing in a year or 2 years or 3 years or whatever. They're still young, but I'm not ready to deal with all this shit. And with everything that I went through, like, one of the things that was really hard for me was my ex-wife had to tell me that my daughter had a boyfriend. And I try to have that relationship with my kids where they can be honest with me and tell me everything. And it's like I was talking to my daughter yesterday. I straight up told her, like, the thing that upset me about you having a boyfriend is that you couldn't tell me about it. You had to have your mom tell me about it. Like, why couldn't you come to me? And she was like, Dad, I'm kind of scared of what you would say or what you would do, this, that, and the other. And, like, I asked my daughter straight up, I was like, have I ever physically hurt you? And she was like, no. I was like, why are you worried about it? And she was like, well, I'm worried about it because I don't know how you're going to react. Well, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard to deal with everyday shit when you've seen the underbelly of the beast, so to speak. I mean, like, I don't know. It's just fucking hard. And I don't know where the fuck Widener went.
He's probably taking care of something else with broken piggy bank.
Yeah. Yeah, he's probably fixing the broken piggy. So while I got you on here, you brought something up before the podcast.
Oh, man.
It's not that I forgot about it. It's just that we haven't talked about it. And that's Green and Ramirez.
Oh, my goodness.
Like, dude, I was working in the oil field when I was working in the oil field in Andrews, Texas. I remember it fucking like it was yesterday when I got the phone call from Smoke Douglas asking me if I had talked to Green or Ramirez in the last year. And I was like, no. I was like, I knew who they were. We were cool, whatever. But we didn't really hang out much. I mean, they were like best friends,
Yeah.
like, what the fuck was going on there? You know, like I've read the articles on, you know, you can Google it, you know, you can Google it. We're not joking about what really happened.
Not at all.
I wish we were, but this just goes to show how our minds were so fucked when we left. The reports that I read online, which I don't know exactly what transpired, but from what I read online, they were partying together. Ramirez said something about how he didn't believe in God. So Green asked him, well, here's your chance to find out, and shot the guy and killed him. And like, I guess his mom and sister helped bury him in the backyard. They stole his credit cards, lived off of his credit cards for a while until they got caught, is what I'm understanding from the reports that I read online. Now, I never got called in for any kind of court, anything like that. I just got called on the phone by Smoke Douglas asking if I had seen these guys in the last year or so. So now, Abbott, you might have been around when all this went on. I was already out. I was in the oil field.
Yeah, were you still in Oklahoma?
No, actually, I was already here at Fort Knox. So it happened after I had left. But yeah, I got a message one day of like, hey, I need you to call me. And I was like, okay, you know, you were my first sergeant at the time. I have no idea why you need me to call you now. It's been like 2 years. This is crazy.
You ain't the boss of me.
I called.
You ain't my fucking boss.
I'm like, okay. So I called and I'm like, what's going on? Did you hear about Green and Ramirez? I'm like, no. The last I knew, you know, they both got out. Green and his wife like scooped Ramirez up and was like, hey, come hang out with us. They had some kind of like weird relationship. Other than that, I ain't heard nothing about the guys. And then it was like, all right, so you need to go online and you need to Google this. Like, what? Okay. So I Googled it and I was reading through the articles just like you did. And I was like,
yeah,
this is some twisted stuff.
Oh, way bad.
Do you go from being like the best of friends and hanging out and being like each other's wingman at the bar? Because the last I knew, Ramirez is the one that helped Green get married.
Yep.
So it was like you guys took care of each other.
Yeah.
You guys were best friends. You guys lived together when we deployed. You guys were inseparable. Every time there was a Green, there was a Ramirez. You couldn't go anywhere without both of them together. God, so when I started reading that article and just like reading how cold-blooded it was, you know.
Oh, it was disgusting. It was sick.
I was like, seriously? You guys got in an argument. You walked in his room and you shot him and then called your mom and your sister to come and help you bury this out in the middle of nowhere.
And clean it. What? And clean it up.
Oh, he shot him with Ramirez's gun.
Yeah. He shot him with his
with Ramirez's gun.
I was like,
what the fuck, man? I mean, it's not funny, but it's fucked up.
It is fucked up, but Whitener, I was at your house. You pulled out an AR, and I was looking through a scope through a neighbor's fucking window. Did I ever point the weapon at you?
Who? My house?
Yeah. Remember when you showed me your AR that's under the bed or whatever?
Wow. Just sell me out here.
Secrets.
My AR-10?
Yeah, but remember but what I'm saying, what I'm going to is you showed me a weapon.
I'm interested now.
I looked out the window. I handed it back to you. Never once did I muzzle flash you Or never once did I point the weapon at you.
That's
what I'm getting at.
We're talking about a whole different thing. This was...
No, man. I think there was something totally just wrong about the whole thing. And I think there was some planning that went along with it. I don't think it was just a spur of the moment kind of thing.
So here's what people don't understand about Ramirez. I was his roommate after Iraq in 06. And Ramirez, what he did is, you know how you see the TV show, the World Star Poker series or whatever, people playing poker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what Ramirez would do is he'd bet on those people that he thought that would win. Sounds stupid as fuck. He told me this. I'm like, this is stupid. But this cat, he made a lot of money on saying, hey, he's going to win in poker, even though he wasn't playing in poker. So I'm like, this is stupid. So what?
He was gambling on poker, but wasn't playing poker.
Exactly. He was gambling on the people that were winning at poker.
He was good at it too.
He'd win all this money and he bought guns. He bought guns after guns after guns. And which is great because he had a lot of beautiful guns. That's the first time I saw a Barrett in real life, a 50 cal sniper rifle. I was like, that's amazing.
Dude, I was on staff duty when they delivered his ammo for that thing.
Do you remember?
They delivered it to the battalion.
We had a barracks inspection after Iraq, and Ramirez told me we were roommates, and Ramirez is like, they're gonna find a lot of ammo, and it was like duffel bag after duffel bag of just ammo, and I'm like, hey, he's my roommate. I didn't know anything about that because I don't go in his fucking closet. Like, oh god.
Yeah.
So
he had a full-blown arsenal in the barracks. Dude.
He had a full arsenal, 100%. But he loved guns, and that was great. Like, I love guns. Guns are great. And it's just kind of sad to hear, you know, the best friend thing, like Sergeant Abbott was saying, it's like they were best friends. You never saw them away from each other.
100%.
But Green, when I first met Green, I knew, like, when I first met him, I was like, there's something up with this guy. He's a little fucked up. He's a little fucking weird. I'll keep my distance. But we talked because we had the same names, Justin Green, Justin Widener. I was like, hey, that's cool. I was like, that's how it was. And just the way it ended. And you know, you want to talk about, he shot him with his own gun. And I think I said that, but it got way deeper into that when Green buried Ramirez and when Green went to
in a shallow grave.
In a shallow grave. Like what, a refrigerator or a stove on top of him, and they found him
a piece of tin on top of him.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It was like old roofing or something.
It was so
like old roofing or something. Yeah.
And for Green to be the person that we all knew, like he has so many things going on that no one realized that. But I think
it was more believable that Ramirez would have done that than Green. That was
absolutely 100%.
That was the messed up part of it, is that it was totally just the opposite of what any of us would have expected. And you start reading the articles and you're just like, whoa.
When you read the articles, it doesn't sound like the two. It doesn't sound like those two at all. But when I really dug into it, and like what got him caught was the fucking pizza dude, wasn't it? Like they ordered pizza and said that dude paid for it or some shit.
No. That's not how it happened at all. So when Green called his mom and sister to help clean up Ramirez's blood, Green's sister brought a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And then years and years after, the friend felt
guilty, maybe
guilt
a little bit,
and went to the sheriff. and said, "Hey, this is where Ramirez is buried." And then that's when she told the stories. They'd get all fucking drunk. They'd go out there and like look at the body and stuff like that. And then took the, oh yeah. And they took the sheriff straight to Ramirez, 100%.
Yep. They identified him by his dental records.
Yep. You know, Ramirez was Chilean. He is from Chile. And the only person on record he had was his mom that lived in Chile.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
He had nothing when he got out of the military.
That is fucking nuts.
Yeah,
but that just goes.
He had like 50 guns and Justin Green. That was all he had.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that's just fucking nuts when you think about it. I mean, like, that just goes to prove the fucked up shit that we thought was normal. I mean, no, you know, not throwing bombs out there or anything towards us or anything like that, but that's one of the reasons why we need this podcast to get out there, is for the fact that there are people out there fucked up in the head from either deployments or ex-wives or whatever that make you think that this shit is normal. I mean, obviously Green thought it was fucking normal because he kept going back to the fucking grave, is what Widener is saying.
Well, no, so let's think about it back. Abbott, he might remember this too. The first time I met Green, I think he was already 3 tours in.
Yeah.
3 in. Green was already fucking well.
He had deployed. He had deployed like twice before he deployed with us, so he was on his third
with
us in 06.
And he was all. Like, if you go, hey Green, what's up? And he's like, cool. You're like, all right, I'm just gonna walk this way now. Like you don't fucking talk to him. Like and everyone knew that.
He was that guy that was just straight faced all the time, and he really didn't say much of anything. If you talk to him, he would talk to you, but other than that, he was.
I had staff duty with that dude one time, and that dude stared at the wall for fucking 24 hours. And when I would talk to him, he would just look at me and he would give me one-word answers to everything.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why him and Ramirez were so great together, because Ramirez, he's like the same way. But I'll tell you a story about Ramirez real quick. So after Iraq in 06, we were roommates. I'll never forget this as long as I fucking live. And you know those cool Rockstar belts that they're like studded. They have studs around them, the black stud. Well, Ramirez, he had one of those, but they were pink. And he's like, hey, Widener, can you take me to – it was this Asian bar. I want to say the Palms something in Lawton, Oklahoma. He liked Asian women. And I had a car. Remember the Cadillac, the green Cadillac, was it?
The green caddy, baby.
I remember the green caddy.
Yeah. So he didn't have a ride. He's like, hey, Widener, will you take me to this Palms or whatever it was? I was like, yeah, no, it's like a Tuesday night. We got PT. He's like, I'll buy you a beer. I'm like, all right, let's go. And he's wearing this pink belt. And we get to the bar, and it's all just Asian ladies behind the bar that he likes. And he's like getting his thing on, and he did something. And this guy walks up, and he's like, nice pink belt, you faggot. And I'm like, And then Ramirez, he looks over. He's like, oh, yeah, you like my fucking belt? And I'm like, oh, this is not good. And then he pulls out a Desert Eagle, and he slams it on the bar. And he's like, you like my fucking belt? And I'm like, oh, God, Ramirez, put that away. What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? And the guy's like, dude, I don't want any problems. And Ramirez is like, no, I just thought you liked my belt. And then he grabbed his fucking Desert Eagle and put it back in his oh, my God. I'll never forget that as long as I live. That's a Ramirez story to the end.
Oh, totally.
We hear what happened ultimately. You know, it's sad that he had no family, and you know, it just.
I'll be right back.
But you were there, like it was Smoke Douglas that told us about that I remember.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that whole situation is just wow. It kind of blew my mind. You know, it it just goes to show you that even though we look like we've got it together,
Yeah.
we really don't have it together.
Yeah. Unless you actually try to have it together.
And you know, looking like we have it together and actually making it through that storm, that's what you guys are trying to do here. And that's what's so cool about this podcast, you know, is that we started off broke. I mean, I was drinking like a fish. I figured it out. I think over all the years that I spent on liquor, I spent over $50,000 in like 5 years. And I was like, are you serious? I have no idea what I was thinking or why I was doing it. But, you know, that was the thing. I was broke, but I didn't do anything about it. I just kept going down the same path, going down the same path, going down the same path, saying the same thing to myself. Well, it'll be better tomorrow. It'll be better tomorrow.
Yeah.
Better tomorrow. And it was never better until I went
better. No.
So, I mean, that's what really drew me to this thing, man, is listening to all the different stories of people that you guys have had on here previously. And it was like, yeah, this is something that I can get behind. I mean, you know, I'm not going to put a church stamp on your podcast or anything like that.
No.
I wouldn't. but I tell you, when me and Widener,
for getting the word out,
I called Widener.
That are going through the stuff that we went through, and we battled through it, and we came out better on the other side. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff that people need to hear. I mean, yeah, we've had our bumps and our bruises, and we've got knocked over the head more than we can count, but we're still here. We're still trying to fight, and we're still trying to make a difference in other people's lives. That's what it's.
That's what it's all about.
I called Widener one night out of the blue, and I told him, I said, we're going to start a podcast, and we're going to talk about this stuff. And of course, you know, Widener, you know, like we talked about before we went live, is, you know, Widener's support group, and his wife, you know, is fucking amazing, you know. But he said, well, let me talk to my wife about it, you know. And, you know, he called me back a couple of days later, and he said, I talked to my wife about it, and she thinks it's a great idea. But the thing was me and Widener would sit there and talk for hours. And the stuff we talked about is stuff that we needed to get out, you know, to other people, you know. I'll never forget when I was coaching football, me and Widener had a talk. I had a little bonfire outside my house, and I was sitting there by the bonfire, and I talked to Widener probably 2.5 hours a night. But I'll never forget that night talking to Widener on the phone. And when I got off the phone with Widener, I felt that our conversation should have been recorded, because there was so much that went into our conversation that went beyond just, you know, suicide awareness or, you know, or whatever. You know, it went in so much depth that I felt like somebody needed to hear this shit, you know. And it was probably a couple weeks after that is when I called you, Widener, and said, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this podcast. Well, I'm going to do it, and I want you to do it with me. And, you know, when Widener really thought about it and talked to his wife about it, they decided, you know, That sounds like a great idea. I mean, this was not a fly-by-night situation.
Hey, hold off. I didn't ask permission.
Well, it's not
just offended his manhood. Hold on.
I got the support from my wife.
Yes.
Let's make that.
But
I love you.
I mean, this was not a fly-by-night fucking thing.
It's very thought out.
I mean, how long did we wait before we rolled it out? And honestly, we weren't going to roll it out till January, but Widener
got impulsive,
put out on Facebook that we were going to go live in like October or November time. And it was like, what the fuck? And so I went out and got all this shit. And then like, after he told me we were going to go live with this, like the first time we ever went live together on the Bellwether No podcast, it was funny because Widener, before we started, like I had to call a friend of mine to come over here and show me how to get two people on to do the podcast together. It was a fucking nightmare. And Widener had to go the night before to go buy a fucking laptop and all this shit because he was nowhere close to being ready, but he said we were going to go live. So I kept sending him pictures that week. Like, hey, look, this is what my background's going to look like, this, that, and the other. And he was like, oh, cool, whatever. And then he was like, oh, fuck, we're going live. We're really going live.
The really cool part about this, though, is that it's going to make a bigger impact because this is like real talk between real people.
Yes,
it is real talk.
Yeah. We're not just making this stuff up as we go. Well, we are making it up as we go along, but it's not scripted. You know, we can.
What happened?
But that's how
we talk to you.
Conversations always were in the military. We just went with it, and that's what draws people to stuff like that is because it's real. It's real people.
It is
real problems. And we're talking about how we got over it or how we can help each other get over it. Yes, some of the stuff's not going to work for everybody. But you know what? If we made an impact in one person's life, that's where it's at. One person.
That's our whole thing.
A lot.
That's our whole thing.
We have said that from day one. If we can just keep one person from putting that gun in their mouth, then we've done our job. You know? I mean, we probably won't ever know about this one person. I mean, like, I doubt that one person's ever going to call us or message us and say, hey, look, I watched your podcast and it gave me a reason to stay alive. We're not expecting that. But if we can talk, you know, just the talk that we have and show that we are truly concerned about people's mental health, if we could do that, just one person save their life. That was the selling point on this whole thing. That's what I told Widener from day one. Yeah. I said, look, if we can keep one person to keep from doing what Hill did, we done what we set out to do.
Yep.
And I mean we've got a lot of things that we've talked about in the past, you know, to roll out for. You know, 2020 is going to be a huge year for Bellwether No. That's all I got to say. It's going to be a huge year for us. Widener kind of knows what we're going in the realm of. You know, I started Talk with GB. It's a little short podcast. You know, 5 to 12 minutes long. You know, whatever every day that I try to roll out. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing that's going to be huge in 2020. So, like, I encourage you to keep watching because I'm telling you, when it all rolls out, you know, I got a comment earlier from Allison saying, Gary, I want your shirt, whatever. Widener, I mean, one of the things that I'm going to try to roll out this year is a Bellwether No apparel line. And this is going to be one of the shirts that we roll out. But I mean, that's one of the things that we work on, you know, like that we talk about, you know, behind closed doors or whatever. And believe it or not, you know, shout out to Shaka McKell Weber. You know, like, do you remember Weber, Abbott?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Weber is in Japan, and he is working behind the scenes on the Bellwether No, and he's the one that came up with the logo. He's the one that's been really kind of trying to help get us out, you know, beyond the whole paying Facebook to push our product. He's the one that
Japan, though.
the hashtag.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, he's in Japan, and I mean, we're working as much as we can with Weber, but you know, it's kind of hard sometimes when he's in Japan. But the thing is we're, you know, this all started with just our conversation. You know, our conversation started it all. And if it wasn't for the conversations that we had, we wouldn't have made it as far as we did.
No, and I mean, like I said, guys, I tip my hat to you both for doing this. I know that, you know, talking about this stuff isn't easy. And, you know,
No,
I don't have all the answers. I wish I did. I wish I could, you know, open a book and be like, okay, time to look at page 56. This is going to tell us how to do it. I wish it was that easy. But honestly, I mean, this is a tough subject. You know, veteran suicide is on the rise. It's almost killed more people than have died in conflict in the last 10 years. So it's like, it's an epidemic. And
it is.
Everybody's up in arms about the coronavirus. Hey, check it out. Wash your hands. You won't get sick. Unfortunately,
yeah,
true.
Not that easy with this.
True.
Don't make out with loose women. You won't get sick.
Oh God.
But you know, that's why I wanted to be a part of it. I mean, I work with veterans every day, and you know, from 99 all the way down to 24, I run the gambit of working with veterans on a daily basis. And you know, this is some of the stuff that we talk about on a regular basis too. You know, we sit around and we're like, yeah, I remember when we did this, or I remember when we did that. And sometimes it gets serious. It does.
Sure.
But
it does. Quickly.
You can be lighthearted in conversation and still get your point across. And you know, that's why I was ecstatic, and that's why I reached out to you guys and was like, hey, I want to be a part of this. Let me in. Let me come and sit for a little bit. I just want to hang out.
You know, and you know, Widener texted me earlier, and he was like, man, he doesn't really have, you know, like every guest we've had has always had a way that they were gonna go with the show. You know, and like he was like, man, he doesn't really have anything. And I straight up told him, I was like, dude, maybe reminiscing and just talking about the things that,
yep,
you know, maybe that's all he needs. Maybe that's what we need to do with him. You know, and he was like, you know what, you're right. You know, because I'm gonna tell you, me and Widener talk probably 2 or 3 times a week at least, you know, that many times. And I mean, Widener knows the shit that goes on in my head. I know the shit that goes on in Widener's head. It's fucking rough every fucking day, man. I'm telling you, like, I mean, it's just rough, you know. And when I talk to Widener about it, like, I vent to Widener like all the fucking time. I yell at that dude, and I'm sure he's like, you know, he laughs it off, and I'm glad he does, because, you know, and there's times he'll tell me like, man, I really don't feel like going live, but we need to. And that's something that we need to get back onto, is going live at least once a week. You know, that's something that I don't, you know, like he'll say, well, I don't feel like it. Or I'll say, fuck, man, I had a shitty day at work. I don't really fucking feel like dealing with it. But I will tell you, Abbott, and this is Widener knows about this, and I don't know if we've rolled this out on Bellwether, no, but
it's Tartan Abbott to you.
No, Sergeant Abbott. Sorry, I mean, I'm parade dress. Fuck, but God, dude.
You can't even get the arms back there anymore. What are you talking about, man?
Shit, I can still do it. It just takes me a minute. I can't pop into that shit no more. There ain't no popping in it. But like one of the things that me and Widener talked about, I guess it was a little bit after Christmas, wasn't it? When my mom had the intervention with me.
I'm still waiting.
And was like,
I don't know yet.
Yeah, you do. Remember I told you my mom came to my house and woke me up and was like, we need to talk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we sat down and my mom was like, look, you have no interest in dating anybody. You had, like every time I talk to you, you're going to sleep. Like I'm worried about you, and to hear my mother tell me that fucked me up because, with my father, he's fighting cancer and everything else, which, he's won the battle with cancer. Right now, we're just trying to get all the infections taken care of. But for my mom to drive to my house out in the middle of nowhere to come tell me, like, hey, I'm worried about you because if you're not at work, you're asleep and you have you have no desire to do anything but sleep or work. Like, I have an issue with it. It really woke me up. And, she told me, she straight up told me, like, I love what you're doing with your podcast, but how can you help other people when this is what you're dealing with? And, it really woke me up. And I called Widener that day and I was like, so my mom had an intervention with me today. It sounds crazy, but for her to notice that, it kind of like blew my mind,
Sometimes that's all that we need, though, is every now and then we just need that kick in the pants. Like, hey, you're screwed up.
Yeah.
And, you're talking about how you want to make a difference. What are you doing about it? You're just sitting here. Stop sitting on your hands. Get out there and do it.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, it took that for me too, guys. I mean, I had to get kicked in the pants in order to even go to school. It hasn't been an easy road. I still have my bad days, just like everybody else. I don't want to get out of bed, but I get up.
Yeah.
I go to my job. I do what I need to do, and I keep on keeping on. I mean, that's the best thing that I can say.
That's something that's on my mind, like, every day. When my alarm goes off, I sit there and wonder to myself, like, do I really want to get up and face today?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's one of my hardest things is facing every day. Like, sometimes I wish you could sleep all day and not have to worry about it. But every day I have to get up and face the day, and it fucking sucks, man. It really does. And I mean, there's times that I wish that, that I just didn't have to, or I wish that the civilian world understood, like, okay, today's not a good day. Don't fuck with me today. It might be a bad situation for you, but civilians don't give a shit about that.
Well, military doesn't either. So
no, not really.
Nobody gives a fuck.
No one cares. No one cares.
That's why we all need that one person. Like,
yeah,
you gotta have that.
And Widener,
you can go and look at it and be like, dude, today I'm not feeling any such a way today.
Yeah.
So what do you think I should do? It's like, tell me how to live my life today. And every now and then,
and like Widener had to calm me down today, because next week everybody pretty much that is anybody where I work is going on vacation, and they're kind of leaving me to do a very important job. And it's like me and Widener, when Widener called me today when I got off work, he was like, go unwind a little bit. Right now, you're too wound up, And I was. I'm not gonna lie. Like, if it wasn't for me, trying to recenter, like this would have been a totally different podcast. Way different. That's how it was.
All right. I think we need to wrap this one up. But I got one question for Sergeant Abbott before we leave. For somebody that's leaving the military, what is the best advice for them to adapt? What would you say? I know it's tough. But I think it's tough, but it's simple. So you tell me what you think.
The best advice I give somebody for leaving the military at this particular point in time is leave the military mentality behind you. You can still strive to be number one and not tell everybody about it. You don't have to,
I like it.
You don't have to be out there and be flashy all the time. You can let your work ethic and your personality do it for you. You don't have to be that way. Like, I got this. No, just
silent professional.
Hey, I made a career out of it, bro.
All right.
Oh man. Sergeant Abbott, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to coming on with us, reaching out, saying that you want to go live with us. This is something that
it was kind of very all around, but it was a good time.
And and like I said, before we ever went live, to Widener, like just the reminiscing will be fun, but when we got real serious talking about Hill and Ramirez and Green and stuff like that, it's rough, when you think about it. We've been through the fire, like I don't think that there's many people out there that actually know everything that we went through, and that's okay. I'd rather them not know. I'd rather them not know for the fact that I didn't do it for recognition. I didn't do it for fame, or I sure as hell didn't do it for the fucking money. I did it for the people standing next to me. In that formation, or the guy running next to me, or in the running formations, or the guy sitting out in the parking lot having a beer with me after work. That's the reason why I did it. It had nothing to do with anything else. And when we look back at it, it kind of reminds me of that song by Jamie Johnson in Color, talking about, I don't know if you've heard it. I don't know if you listen to this kind of music, Sergeant Abbott, or not. But if you haven't heard the song,
nope. I don't even know what it is.
If you don't know the song In Color by Jamie Johnson, you really need to listen to it. But it's talking about, he's going through his grandpa's pictures, and he sees a picture of him and his buddy that was in the war, and he's talking about that was his tail gunner or whatever. He's like, you can't see that we were scared to death, but there's certain things that you can't see in color, like if it was in color or whatever, but when you look back and you think about, like what we talked about, going to the bars and getting in the big fights or whatever, it wasn't ever nobody ever knew we were scared. We did it for each other. You know, we had each other's back no matter what. And I mean, when you sit back and think about it, all the things that we went through, like, it's amazing we're still here to talk about it. And being that we're man enough to step up in front of all of Facebook and YouTube to tell our story is fucking crazy when you think about it.
I mean, everybody's got a story to tell, and you know it. You don't always have to be on a soapbox to talk about it. A lot of our stuff comes from a camaraderie that a lot of people don't know about or they don't understand it. So to like just be able to hang out, man, and talk about grilling while we have a mortar attack going on. We're outside steaks on a grill. We're getting rockets shot at us, but we'd rather have a burger. I mean,
100%.
Like, I can't leave my food on the grill; it's gonna burn. I'm not
gonna find me in grilling.
I mean, it's like some folks won't understand that stuff, but at the same time, you
can't expect them to either.
No, and that's the cool part about having military friendships and relationships is that person that you're talking to at that point in time knows exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
Because you were there.
Yeah.
We might not have always been together at the same time. We might have been in different spots, but we were always doing almost something identical, no matter where we were in that little small, so that's the cool part about this whole thing, man, is that I know for a fact, and I can guarantee that somebody, sometime, some way, maybe not this year, maybe not even next year, somebody's going to say something about this podcast and be like, man, just listen to you guys talk. And the way that you guys talk to each other, that's something that I wish I had with other people.
Well, thank you for...
It might not even be a military dude. It might be a civilian that listens to this someday and like, hey,
it's crazy. I'm a
sailors on each side of you, and you're sitting there all calm and collected. How did you do it? I don't know.
I'm a salesman, and I've been asked by a couple of my customers, like, hey, I saw you have a podcast, like, and they might know, like, one of them knew Priscilla from the one that we did in December, and they're like, man, that's awesome that you're doing that. Like, what was your inspiration? And like, it always goes back to Hill. Always goes back to Hill.
Yeah.
But Abbott, thank you very much for coming on with us. Don't go anywhere yet when we get off of here, because we've had that in the past where our guests just fucking ghost us right afterwards. But don't go anywhere yet. But for everybody else watching, thank you for watching. Like and share. Get us out there. Go check out the YouTube. Bellwether No on YouTube. Other than that, Widener, you got anything to say before we head out?
No, it's a good time. A lot of information or a lot of conversations. So, shit, we'll just pick it up where we left off at some point. Hey, we are very busy. We have like jobs and families and stuff like that. So we can't not do this on a schedule. And that's probably my fault, but it is what it is.
A lot of it is Widener's fault. I'm ready to go live at all times.
No, thank you for watching.
Disclaimer.
Thank you for being here, and we'll just go from there. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it, guys.